take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
We're going to jump right into AEW Dynamite from Wednesday night. First, we want to go ahead and just a little housekeeping. Patrick is in his car this morning, trying not to wake the family. He's still at home with COVID. We got 30 minutes into an episode recording last night, and they killed the internet here at work for about 5 minutes. So we lost the show, and I was in a hurry to get to another location last night. So we are up and at 'em early this morning recording, and we'll launch as soon as the recording is done.
That was probably the best 30 minutes we've ever done.
I mean, y'all never hear it, but we're going to roll like it was.
The greatest 30 minutes of any wrestling podcast in the history of wrestling podcasts.
Yeah, let's roll with that. They won't know any better. But let's jump into it, man. Started off with a bang on Wednesday night. Darby Allin came in hot against Brody King, jumped his ass before his entrance was even finished. Lights shut out for him to be in the middle of the ring. They come back on. Darby's off the top rope, getting a head start, trying to beat that ass. We had mentioned last week that Darby had won his previous 2 coffin matches, and it would probably be a little rougher time this go around for him to try to beat Brody King, but he got a good start. I thought it was a banger of a match. They went back and forth. They had the bloody ass head on Brody with the thumbtacks and the skateboard. Blood fucking everywhere. You know, we mentioned we talked a couple weeks ago about you do the cutting yourself to get a little color, but this is probably what happens when you let your opponent get after you first, right?
Yeah, and this must mean that they're pretty decent friends, probably, pretty close friends outside of the ring. Not only to get them to trust them to do that, but just to be willing to get your ass beat in public the amount of times. That's something we rarely even talked about, like him getting jumped at the signings, him getting jumped at the Comic-Con. So I would imagine these two guys are pretty close. And, yeah, I mean, what a match this was. What a way to start the show, And I like that they've given Darby this signature match of, like, a coffin match, because it's building up the narrative. It's like, no matter what the size of his opponent is, like, he has this in his back pocket, this coffin match that he can pull out and kind of take it up to the next level. But yeah, we better appreciate Darby while he's here, because he will not be here for a long time.
Yeah, you said yesterday that he might not get past 40.
He definitely probably
without having some serious injuries.
Yeah, definitely probably won't get past 40. Does he make it to 35? I don't know. I think he's 27. Like, I've never seen. There's people that have gone as hard into the barricade as what he does, but there's not many. It's on one hand. And I've never seen anybody take a flip bump into the barricade where they hit top of the spine and go over feet first. A lot of guys will just kind of jump over the barricade and land on their back on the other side, but to hit it with your spine and
roll over,
is not only hella athleticism, but also just a damn daredevil mentality,
Yeah.
And I love Sting popping up out of the coffin.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah, I mean, this was just...
Buddy Matthews ripped as hell still.
Still ripped as hell. I mean, this is what AEW can do that, the other guys... It's not that they can't do, it's that they don't, this isn't their style. We talk about it all the time, AEW needing to run in a different direction to provide that alternative for people out there. And, I mean, this is it. Also, the ending spot.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was planned.
Choking him out with his own chain, dropped his ass to the ground. He hits the ground, rolls forward into the coffin, and the damn lid closes by itself.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's a way you could have done that, right? But it looks hokey, right? Brody's got to take some extra steps to make it work, and you come up being like, it was a cool idea, but they didn't execute it. I mean, if this was the plan, then holy shit, they accomplished it. If this was a happy accident, then holy shit too, what a happy accident this was. But I mean that ending was just that's gonna be a little gif. People will meme that, and
yeah, that was perfect placement. Whoever put, I don't remember who put the coffin there, but he hit the ground, literally bounced forward like you would normally. I mean, just gravity. He's gonna fall forward, just straight into that bitch. It was awesome.
Yeah,
couldn't have planned it any better.
Whoever the producer was for that, good jobs all the way around for everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the end of this feud, I would imagine. Where do you go after a coffin match like that and getting your ass put in there?
Well, we'll talk about this when we talk about the trios tournament. I would think that they're gonna still do the 6-man at All Out between House of Black, Miro, and Darby and Sting. I would think that's probably why Dark Order has been paired up with House of Black in the first round of the trios tournament, is because it gives you that out to where Miro can come down and cement his babyface turn and cost House of Black the trios title. Because just booking wise, they should win the trios title, right? I mean, they're the most badass group, so you have to give yourself some kind of out there, because you don't want to blow your load and have them win it because you're trying to tell another story with Hangman and Kenny and all those guys. So having Miro there is a smart choice of booking to give you that out to where you can have the Dark Order. I mean, I would imagine the Dark Order is going to make it all the way to the finals, right? There's no reason for Best Friends to beat them.
So, no, you mean, House of Black?
Well, no, because like Dark Order, if Miro costs House of Black.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Shit.
The one underneath that is Best Friends and Trustbusters.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know who the hell the Trustbusters are, whatever they had on the promo segment. But you wouldn't want to put Best Friends in that situation because they don't have anything to do with this other story that's going on.
Yeah, true.
So, they can surprise Best Friends, and Best Friends, it's okay for them to get beat on a whim, right? Because they're not booked as a menacing, threatening force within the company the way House of Black is. So, they'll probably do the 6-man between those Miro, Sting, and Darby, and House of Black at All Out, and I don't even know who you put over in that situation.
Yeah.
But
who knows? I've got the Tornado Tag Team match with Andrade and Rush versus the Lucha Brothers. Again, bang, 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 right out of the gate. Solid 1-2 punch with the first match and the second match. We had mentioned last week that we thought this would probably be the highlight of the show, and I honestly thought it was. Andrade's in top form. Rush goes hard. They make a hell of a team. I mean, I love the Lucha Brothers. Rey Fenix is one of my favorites from the tag team division. Just a banger of a match. Whip the shit out of each other. I don't know what else I can say about it, but I mean that one went hard for me.
These first two matches are AEW at its best. When it's humming along and firing on all cylinders, you have stuff like this, to where you put Andrade and Rush together, and you throw them against the Lucha Brothers and let them go for 15 minutes, and they tear the house down. Like, this is what they should be doing all the time. Andrade, I'm a huge fan of Andrade, probably more so than really anybody else. If you want to talk about guys that have been, I won't say misused, but underutilized in AEW, I think he's up there. I mean, he looks, the ability to have that athleticism and to do the lucha moves, but also to look like you're 230 pounds and can whip the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he could hold a world title. He's built like a guy that you could see the belt on.
Yeah, and I mentioned this yesterday, I would love to see like a Mexican wrestler stable that has a run atop the card. We've seen like Mexican wrestlers form groups, but they've never really been positioned as top line guys. And I think having Andrade in that group, just the way he looks. Now, obviously they would need a mouthpiece because that Andrade's that English is not his first language, so he struggles with it. Although I will say, some of the best like intentional comedy, because I don't think it's unintentional. The reactions that Andrade gives in some of these interviews. Somebody posted a supercut of it on Twitter the other day, and he was just with Tony Schiavone, and Tony was asking him something, and he just goes, "Okay, how you know?" Which was just the way he looks at him was just like it was just perfect comedy. So I think like if they had a mouthpiece like a Stokely Hathaway-esque kind of guy who could handle most of the promos, but then like give it to Andrade and Roosh to just do like funny little one-liners or shout in the camera, I think it would really work. So
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of all four of these guys, and
he and Roosh coming out in those masks. Like at first when I saw Andrade coming out with the mask, I was like, I don't know if this works with him or not. But when the way they come out with both of those masks together, I love that entrance. I think it's pretty badass. That fucking skull mask that Roosh comes out with is badass. I mean, it's a great entrance.
And the suits.
Pretty intimidating too. Yeah.
The tearaway suits.
Yeah.
Are just great. Yeah. So I think, you know, if they could replace Jose with somebody else that maybe has a little bit more charisma.
Yeah.
Because this is what you have managers for. This is why they have a place in wrestling, right? For guys like Andrade is a perfect example. And AEW, they've only recently started to try to get, you know, you had Don Callis, and he, you know, his run with Omega. He's really the only manager I can think of that had any kind of like story going on. And now you had Mark Sterling, you got Stokely, and managers have kind of gone out of style in wrestling. I mean, Paul Heyman's really the only one that has in the last maybe 10 years who's really done anything. You go back and watch 80s, 90s wrestling. I mean, there's managers, especially in the 80s. I mean, God, everybody had a manager. Road Warriors had a manager. You know, Midnight Express with Jim Cornette. Jimmy Hart was there. J.J. Dillon, like everybody had one. So maybe AEW will bring it back.
Yeah, we'll see. Can't get any better than that, though, off the top. 1-2, like we just mentioned. And then we take a little bit of a downslide on the show. Next segment is Young Bucks approaching Hangman Adam Page in the locker room. And this is kind of high schoolish, like we were talking about again last week. I like the concept of the Young Bucks trying to reconcile with Adam Page. I just think it got long and awkward. And the Young Bucks don't act well enough to carry a segment for as long as it did. And you definitely have thoughts on it.
Oh, this was awful. I mean, this was 3-4 minutes of just nothing but dreadful, like you said, acting. They're just not good actors. And we'll talk about the Miro promo here in a second, because that is a level of acting that he nails every single time. But like but they're just not convincing. And like you said, I get them wanting to reconcile with Hangman, right? Because they have a history there. But like, this is high school, middle school level drama stuff for guys that are supposed to be engaged in a combat sport where they beat people up for a living. You know, that's what we have to always keep that in mind when we're talking about wrestling, is that like, this is supposed to be real to the people that are doing it. And so this was just, and I get wanting to, you have to have that segment that kind of way, right? Because AEW doesn't do invisible camera segments the way that WWE does. WWE will routinely have these segments where the guys are interacting with each other in the locker room and they act like the camera's not there, which is a bit of a turnoff for somebody like me, right? Which is why AEW doesn't do that. But the conceit with the Young Bucks that do these segments is that Cutler's behind the camera. So it adds a first-person element to it where it makes sense. And I get that kind of logic. I like that logic. But, like, this was just not good at all. It was overwrought. It was long. And, I mean, talk about somebody who's had a fall from grace from the top of the card, world champion, to where he's at now. I mean, Hangman, I don't think there's anybody that's fallen as fast and as hard as what he has.
Yeah,
I was trying to think, like, Ron Simmons won the world title, I think, in '92 against Vader. But if you hear that story, that was just like kind of on a whim. And then Ron Simmons really never, he was a lower mid-card guy for that the rest of his career. They invested 2.5 years into Hangman.
yeah, and he's still showing as the number one ranked contender, but they're not treating him like that.
Uh-uh.
You know,
And he's still over.
if he were the number one ranked contender, he would be cutting promos on Moxley and or Punk. We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, I don't know. We talk about Hangman and his run or lack of run every week, and they've got to figure out what's happening there, because he's a top tier talent. I just don't know where they go with it. And that segment last night was, while I like the sentiment, was just not good at all.
Yeah, there's better execution here that could have been done.
Yeah.
And also, like, Hangman needs to kind of protect his character a little bit. He told, and storyline, kayfabe-wise, I mean, he was pretty adamant that Adam Cole was a snake in the grass. And so, I think that what turned me off of the whole segment is Hangman's just kind of like, all shucks attitude. Like, hey, guys, like, it's all right. Like, I think he needs to be a little bit more pissed off about it. Like,
yeah.
I won a world championship. You guys weren't there.
Yeah.
We started this whole company together. And
I was alone when I won my championship,
Right. But these guys had my back, talking about the Dark Order. And so, like, I'm in their corner. So, like, thanks, but no thanks. Like, best of luck to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll jump into the next segment, which was Luchasaurus versus Anthony Henry. And that's really only there to serve as a vehicle to get a little more time between Jungle Boy, who was on commentary, and Christian Cage. And, there's essentially a squash match for Luchasaurus. I'm still under the impression that they probably brought Jungle Boy back a little too quickly. If he's not going to be getting physical in the ring, having match, then he's been back on TV for what, 3 or 4, at least 3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, and still just chasing Christian Cage around with nothing really happening there. That's getting a little awkward at this point too. I just feel like maybe they should have held him out longer if they knew that he wasn't physically cleared to wrestle. It's just being dragged out.
So is that the thing? Is he still not cleared?
I would assume that's the case.
Okay.
And I haven't seen any headlines or anything that said that he has been cleared.
So yeah, that's a mistake then, because like all the heat from this angle has just dissipated completely. And you want to talk about somebody doing some of the best work of their career on the microphone with Christian Cage. I mean, he was killing it for 3 weeks. Even the little things like teaming up with Luchasaurus, letting Luchasaurus do all the damage, and then him tagging in and just getting the pin. Like, that's great heel work. And then everything from Jungle Boy, we talked about it. Jungle Boy just waltzing down the aisle when he's supposed to be coming back with a vengeance. Like, we've lost all the momentum completely.
Yeah.
Like, why is Jungle Boy not holding up the show and, like, demanding Tony Khan to give him a match with Christian?
Yeah.
Now, we know why in outside of kayfabe, right? It's because they're waiting to do this at the pay-per-view. But like we talk about all the time, the show itself can't operate that way. Like, these guys have to be in it for real. So why not have Jungle Boy come to the microphone and be like, there's not another damn match happening on this show until I get my hands on Christian Cage. Like,
I mean, they got to do something here to bring some heat back to this story.
Like, why are they not having a match? They want to do it at the pay-per-view, cool, but like, they jumped Matt Hardy and put Matt Hardy through a table, and then a week later he got a match with Christian. So like we've had Jungle Boy come back, and there's just been no explanation about why these guys haven't been put in the ring with each other yet.
Yeah.
Because you could even do it to where they immediately have a match, and then Luchasaurus fully turns on Jungle Boy, and so Jungle Boy still doesn't get his hands on Christian.
Yeah, that's a good angle.
And then you stretch it out to the pay-per-view that way. You could put Jungle Boy back on the shelf for a week and be like, he's not medically cleared. He can't come in this building. First of all, he should have been suspended. Right? He tried to kill. He attempted murder, not only on Christian, but on Tony Schiavone. Like, that can't fly. He should have been locked out of the building that way, not come back. So, like, there are ways you could have done this that give Jungle Boy a little bit of heat. Like, I just don't buy that Jungle Boy is this, that he has any kind of seeking revenge on Christian just based on his actions.
Yeah.
It's too nonchalant for what the angle was. This should have been a blood feud.
Yeah. Maybe they'll figure out the right direction for this. They got a little less than a month to get it right. And I feel like they'll get there because this will be a big payoff for the future of Jungle Boy.
I mean, I know he's
right
young.
now,
I know he's young and he can get there, but I don't. If this angle was, can fans see Jungle Boy in a main event light? I don't see it from what he's given us.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that's the creative, I think, too. But
too, a lot of that is whoever's in his ear.
Yeah.
You know, but again, you have to be in control of your character, you know. You have to be the one as the wrestler to be like, it's me you're putting out there, and it's me that's going to be looked at in this kind of light. So, like, I'm going to take a little bit of ownership of it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we've got a series of promos next. We're just going to cover them all at once. We touched on it just a little bit up top, but during Miro's promo, which was an excellent promo, you know, sort of a moody, atmospheric thing, basically in a room by himself with some pretty cool lighting, and then Julia Hart attempts to bring him into the House of Black. And he's talking about pagans and there's only one woman that can touch me and all that stuff. So yeah, you kind of mentioned earlier what you think may happen with this Miro angle, but if you want to expand on that a little bit more while we're in the promo section.
Yeah, I mean this is what good acting looks like in wrestling. It looks like what Miro does. You know, he nails, because these things aren't. You know, you got two types of wrestling promos, right? You got the flair kind of part where it's like he's just intense and it all feels off the cuff and he's just rattling. And then you got like the Jake the Snakes Roberts kind of promos where it's like real methodical and you can tell like he's actually thought about this and he's like diabolical with it. And obviously that involves a level of acting that like the flair stuff doesn't really do, because you can just kind of get in the moment and just let it all flow. And so Miro is in the mold of the Jake the Snake, and this is how you do good wrestling acting. He nails it every single time. I think he's even like he's mentioned like in interviews, he's taken acting classes. I think he's like booked in some movies and stuff like that. So
I think while he was off on, while he was not cleared to wrestle, I think he did some work for CBS or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, he seems like he's the guy that would kind of nail it and be interested in doing that kind of stuff. He's got that talent for it. I love Julia Hart, too. I think she's doing some really interesting character work. I love that she just invaded his space, and he was just kind of like, yeah, be gone.
Just out of nowhere, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of like, you know, at that point, then, like, why does the House of Black not just come up? But, like, you kind of, maybe... There are some things you should put a lot of emphasis on thinking about logically, like when you're a creative booker, but then there's some stuff that's like, yeah, it's fine, like let it roll.
Yeah, it's one thing like if you stage him in his locker room or whatever, and then like she comes in, but like this was just some random ass dark room.
Yeah.
And it was a little weird for me on that end, but...
I'd rather see this than see the Young Bucks. do whatever they
Yeah.
were doing 25
4
minutes
minutes.
before.
Yeah.
So, I'll take this all day.
Yeah. And then next up, there was a little segment with the Ass Boys getting chewed out by Grandpa Ass. Billy was shaming him for ruining what he called the one match that he made famous in his career. And then Stokely comes in, tries to give them a card. Billy throws it on the ground. Danhausen comes in and says they're going to have a match on Friday night with, he says he's teaming with the bearded fella, who we would later learn is Eric Redbeard, which I think is probably just another one-off. I saw a headline early this morning that said that he is not under contract. So it's a little weird for me for them to bring in. I don't know. What are they like? If they're not going to sign him, why do they just keep bringing him in for these random one-offs? They got so much other talent on the roster. It seems a little strange and a little random, but whatever. I don't know the business as well as you, so there may be some logic there.
I mean, nah, it's probably just that they don't like. Obviously, Hookhausen's not a thing anymore, although we didn't get any
Right.
explanation as to why. So
Right.
I think, I mentioned last week, like, Danhausen's the most over jobber of all time. And that's not a insult to the dude. You need these guys that are basically just enhancement talent. They have a place in wrestling. And he has made the most of every single opportunity he's gotten. I mean, he probably sells a shit ton of merch. And so he's going to have a career doing this for as long as he wants to do it, right? So, like, this is the perfect use to him. You pair him up with a big dude. The big dude looks like he's going to be able to get the advantage on the heels. The heels cut the big guy off and screw him over, and then they just get the win over Danhausen, The bigger thing is, like, Stokely, what does he want with the Gun Club? Because if he's putting together a little stable, I don't know if the Gun Club would have been my first choice for a tag team, but they have
Yeah.
talent. So I think maybe he can pull it out. And it makes sense. It fits in with the disgruntled employee kind of vibe that he's going because, they're the Gun Club, but everybody calls them the Ass Boys, right? And kind of treats them as a joke. So if they can pull a little bit of viciousness out of them. And I really like Austin Gunn.
Yeah.
Colton, I think, has some potential too, but Austin, like, he's cut right from his dad's cloth. His facials, his ability to bump in the ring. So it'll be, we'll see how this stable kind of shakes out, particularly if there's somebody behind, if it's an MJF behind the scenes
Yeah.
that is conducting all this stuff, as the theory is kind of out there now. But I have another theory that we'll talk about the main event, something that I might be
Yeah.
interested in, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see about that. And then next was Thunder Rosa looking very awkward when they cut to her with this ridiculous smile. And Tony Storm. There's an injury again with Chris Statlander. It's her other knee this time. I did read that last night where they said it's her other knee. So it's not the one that she tore her ACL on last year. And had to sit out for over a year. So I don't think she'll be out nearly as long. But it kind of sucks, man, because, like, she was gearing up for a run last year when she got injured. And then they're gearing her up again now. And then she's back on the sideline for a little bit, which is why Tony Storm is now the number one contender.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Statlander. It would have been good to see the injury in a highlight package. This promo between these two women was bad. Like we talk about all the time, this is not Thunder Rosa's strong suit, and yet they continually keep trotting her out there in front of a microphone without any kind of, because there are ways to protect people that aren't good talkers, and they do it all the time. So I don't know why they just don't do it for her constantly, which is they do the little sit down interviews and they put the cool lighting behind them and they cut it together with the video highlights. They do it all the time on the road to AEW. Wardlow gets his stuff done that way. Just do it for her all the time. Just like she can't quit putting her in this position where the position she's in is not her strong suit. She's a worker. She's a wrestler. She has a ton of fire in the ring. She's got a cool look about her, but she just can't cut a promo. So I don't know why they keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're hoping that she'll get better. Like, Britt Baker got a lot better. Britt Baker was terrible when she started, and she had a moment during Rampage last week where I was like, okay, well, maybe I've turned a corner on Britt Baker, and, you know, she's gotten exponentially better than when she started, I thought. So maybe they're thinking that Thunder will get there, but it does seem mighty awkward at the moment. Maybe they'll get a clue and change it up, but for now, that's kind of where we are on her. And I know you've got some thoughts on the Matt Menard and Anna Jay segment as well.
Oh, talk about something I loved. This was great. I love Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, and the work that Anna JAS has been doing. You know, you want to give these characters, particularly people that are at this level, right? The Menards, the Anna JASs, the Angelo Parkers, they're at that mid-card, lower mid-card kind of level, right? And if you think about wrestling as like a variety show, you need all kinds of stuff. You need the serious stuff. You need the high-flying stuff. You need the comedy. So it makes sense to give each one of these characters a little thing, right? What does Matt Menard got? He's got the crazy fucking eyes and the you know what makes my nipples hard. Like, those are his two things. Angelo's got the little hair thing that everyone thinks is a knife at this point, but it's just the hairbrush. And Daniel Garcia is kind of the quote-unquote serious guy of the group, right? He's the wrestler. That's why they put him over Bryan Danielson. And, like, so he doesn't need that much. And I think pairing him up with Jericho was a good call because it's brought out more of his personality. He's gotten more confident on the mic every single time he's out there. And then Anna JAS. Just the thing they've given her where she randomly chokes out guys. Like, I love this. Even last week, did you catch the little joke where she chokes out the guy? It goes back to the commentary desk. And the first thing that the commentary say is JR going, "What a way to go out." Perfect. That's all you need. Because now that's stuck in your mind. That's giving her something to do. And, like, she's going to get herself over this way. You keep going down this track and making it funnier and funnier and funnier, like, you'll get her over. And you'll have people they'll start making signs. They'll start buying the T-shirts.
T-shirts.
Like, this is how you do it. And it's perfect because it's like under a minute. You just go back there, you cut. Matt Menard does the thing. Angelo gets his. Garcia gets his. She don't even get a chance on the mic. She just starts shouting.
Yeah, I'm going to choke you out.
I'm going to choke you out. And there it goes. Boom. We're in and out, and we've progressed everybody's character. I mean, it's perfect. That's what it is.
And they're calling Garcia the Dragon Slayer now, or maybe for this week, since they're putting him back up against Bryan Danielson at some point.
Well, yeah, they're doing it because they're doing the House of Dragon.
Yeah.
It's that corporate synergy thing. You know, there's been a lot of talk about Warner Discovery potentially axing AEW, which I don't know why they would. I mean, they get almost 1 million viewers every single week. They're not paying them for the production. That's all coming out of TK's. This is exactly what they want. They want unscripted content. You know, like, this is it. It's cheap. It's way cheaper to have AEW than it is to make, you know, Snowpiercer, which is on TNT, which is why they canceled Snowpiercer and AEW is still around. So, like, I think a lot of this doom and gloom around AEW, both for ratings wise and because Triple H is in charge of WWE, and so there's a little bit of hope there. I think it's all been kind of overblown. I think you're going to have 2 major North American promotions for a long, long time. I don't foresee AEW going anywhere anytime soon.
So next up, you've got Jay Lethal challenges Wardlow again for the TNT belt. And then FTR comes out at the end to kind of back Wardlow on the ramp. Because Wardlow was charging down like he was going to go 1-on-3, and FTR's music hits. And I thought, well, maybe they'll put these guys in a 3 trios match. But they're not in the tournament. I mean, they might end up being a team at some point, but they're not in this initial tournament. So I thought it was a little strange, but I mean, they were together in the Pinnacle for whatever that's worth. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get Lethal and Wardlow again soon, which should be fun. I don't know why you would do it again just to beat Jay Lethal again, because I don't think they'll take the belt off Wardlow anytime soon.
No, and I think, you got to ask yourself constantly, like, are we using each one of these members on our roster, or at least the ones that we have stuff invested in, are we using them in the best way? And I think if you ask yourself that question about FTR, the answer is overwhelmingly no. I mean, they are the hottest tag team going, and yet they don't have anything to do. They come out and make the save with Wardlow. Cool visual. I like FTR being like the kind of the gimmick of anybody getting bullied. Like, we're going to come out and settle the score. We don't like bullies, because they did the same thing for Danhausen, right? They had that random trios match with Danhausen. So that's a cool little gimmick, but this is the most over tag team in professional wrestling right now. By really a long shot. It's kind of not even really close.
Yeah.
And why are they not challenging for the tag titles?
When you figure it out, let me know. I mean,
it's
we've discussed it ad nauseum. It's increasingly frustrating every week.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Particularly if AEW is going to go all, be rankings based, which, I mean, they're not, but that was their whole gimmick when they started, right? Was that wins and losses are going to matter.
Yeah.
But yet here FTR is, and because the visual, like I talked about before, the visual of them having all the belts does nothing if they don't have the main belt, what we're watching from the show, which is the AEW tag titles. Yeah. It doesn't matter really that they have the AAA and the IWGP and the Ring of Honor and all this stuff, because we don't watch those programs. We watch AEW. And so it's only in the totality of them having everything when it becomes a big deal.
Yeah.
And, like has been teased before, and I think you guys mentioned last week on the pod, you and TD, if in 10 years from now we get a FTR book, and they say the only reason the Young Bucks turned babyface was because they didn't want to put him over for a third time, what a crock of shit that's going to be. And this is where the politics of wrestling really hampers creativity. It's what was the death knell for WCW, because Hogan had basically free reign. I just watched Super Brawl 6 from 1996. Hulk Hogan literally takes out 9 people by himself in the most hokey looking shit that if it happened today, people they'd be wanting their money back, honestly. But he had creative control. And so at the Young Bucks, they're EVPs. They have a lot of pull there. And so if the only thing was they didn't want to put FTR over, or they were pressing pause because they wanted the Kenny Omega Trios thing, I think AEW's biggest fault is that they can't pivot. They have plans, and those plans are set in stone, and come hell or high water, doesn't matter. This is what we're going to do. Doesn't matter if it takes 6 months or 2 years. We're going to do it. And it just kind of makes for, I want to say bad television, but it makes just awkward situations happen where fans are just wondering why is FTR not having the titles? So.
Yeah. I mean, we're clearly not the only ones. I see a lot of people talking about it out there, but they'll get it right eventually. They've got to, or else fans are going to fucking riot. I say let's go ahead and get into the next match. Had a pretty quick one between Aaron Solo, the Nightmare Factory, or the Factory, versus Ricky Starks. this match was maybe 2 minutes, 2:30 at tops. Just a reason to get out there and get Ricky over again. He escapes through the crowd when everybody comes after him, and he's up there doing his guitar, to his music. Crowd's fucking loving it. He's picked a kid up and held this kid up in the air in celebration. I mean, Ricky's gonna be Ricky, man, and I think this is the start of them shooting him to the top.
Yeah, there's things I like and dislike about this segment. First of all, the finish to this was the finishing spot of Solo hitting the missed spin kick and Ricky hitting him like that. Just looked beautiful, hitting him with a spear. I thought it was a botch at first, and I still think it might have been a botch. I don't know, but kudos. I mean, those two guys are hella athletes to be able to pull that off, because Ricky just hit him with a beautiful spear. And then I like Ricky escaping through the crowd. If you want to play this thing up of him sharing a lot of similarities to The Rock, obviously The Rock being the people's champion, Ricky needs to be a man in the people. And so, I saw the Twitter clip of him raising the kid up during the commercial break. I wish they would have showed that on TV. Like, that needs to be his gimmick going forward. Like, find a little kid, lift the kid up over, like, escape into the crowd every time you win, go celebrate. Like, that's a hell of a visual. But, like, still at the same time, like, all we really did was we've just delayed this Ricky and Powerhouse feud. Like, we just kind of punted for this week. Why? Again, because we're trying to get to the pay-per-view. I don't really like the booking to where we're just trying to get somewhere and not kind of telling a story along the way. Yeah. Because again, like, Ricky's strong suit is that he is gold on the mic. So as he retreats up into the people, have him grab a mic along the way and cut a promo up there against everyone on the mic, talking about how he hadn't forgot about Will Hobbs. Like, it's little things that we kind of need to get these things going forward. But I mean, you and I we're both big fans of Ricky. And like he mentioned in his promo, the time was 2 months ago to give this guy the push, because I mean, he's there. And I guess that's what, like, people are like, oh, he needs a win. No, he doesn't. Like, you go based off the crowd reaction. There's 3 or 4 guys that are getting a bigger crowd reaction than Ricky Starks. We don't need to be convinced that he's a good professional wrestler.
Nah.
Like, he's the man. Like, he's cool as shit. I don't need to see him wrestling Aaron Solo, but, like, if you're going to give me him wrestling Aaron Solo, then I guess this was the best possible way to do it. So.
Yeah, get in, get out.
Yeah.
Make a spectacle at the end.
Right.
So next up was Jade Cargill versus Madison Rayne. It's a pretty good match overall. It looks like we're getting a little bit more out of Jade every week. She's getting it figured out a little more instead of coming in and getting in and out of a match in 2 or 3 minutes. And some of that may have been, working with Madison Rayne this week and getting coached up a little bit maybe. But I thought it was a little better showing than what we've seen out of Jade. I mean, I know we're supposed to be impressed that she's 36-0 or whatever, but her matches have typically been pretty short. But I thought this one was pretty good overall for the week. Probably could have been a little earlier in the show for me. A lot of times they put some of these women's matches near the end of the show, and I don't want to say you ruin the momentum a little bit, but maybe they could have put it before the Ricky Starks put Starks, right before the main event. I don't know. What did you think about it?
I did not think this was good at all. I thought that this,
really?
Yeah, I thought that this was particularly coming off of what we've come off of on the women's division for these past 2 weeks, both with the Rosa and Hayter match and then the tag team match that those groups had. This was just, you can still tell Jade is green in the ring. And there were a lot of spots in that match where it was just like the chemistry wasn't there. It was just off. You got Jade kind of just like stooped over for no reason and like walking up because she's trying to put herself in a position where Madison can hit her with a blockbuster. She completely missed Kiera Hogan on the pump kick at the end. It didn't even touch her. And the camera was right there. They didn't cut to another angle. And luckily they had sense enough to where when she hit the pump kick on Madison Rayne, I don't think she connected at all either, but the camera hid the angle. I think she whiffed completely on that too. So, like, there was a spot where, you know, Madison had the upper hand on Jade. They were brawling. She hit her with a hurricanrana on the floor, whatever. Jade goes to roll in the ring. Madison gets up on the top, but Kiera's there distracting her. Madison steps in, boom. Jade hits her with just a vicious-looking spear that they ended up using to be the break spot to go to commercial. That should have just been the end of the match.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like they're real close to taking the belt off her anyway. Don't you?
What's that?
I think they're real close to taking the belt off her and putting it on Ember Moon.
Probably, yeah, but like we don't like. Part of her appeal is that she is a powerhouse, and you know the thing with Goldberg is like he would just smash people, and like I don't know how much stock we want to invest in Madison Rayne on screen, particularly because it seems like she was brought in to be a more behind the scenes person. So let her squash Madison Rayne. Let her hit her with a spear, pick her up, jaded, 1, 2, 3. This thing's over in 4 minutes. Because now I'll be like, holy shit. And then you can have commentary put it over. Holy shit, Madison is this accomplished wrestler. And like, damn, Jade just beat the hell out of her in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It just went, because the more we see of Jade, the more we're going to be exposed to it, right? And like, particularly in
you're right.
Particularly an AEW crowd, which has shown time and time and again, they're really more interested in the workers' work rate inside the ring than they are really the stories. So my fear with Jade is that, like, she's cool now, but how much longer can we have these sort of subpar matches until the audience does a Roman Reigns-esque feeling about him from 5 or 6 years ago, where people are like, I can't fucking stand this guy. Like, get him off the screen. Like, I'm afraid that even though Jade's going to be a heel, she's going to get the wrong kind of heat.
Yeah, you might be right on that. I say let's get on into the main event. We had Moxley versus Chris Jericho. We kind of questioned this last week. Why would you do this? I mean, it was a good match. It's highly entertaining. Jericho got Moxley wrapped up there going into the last break, and I typically fast forward through the break because I'm like, okay, well, let's just get on. I'd started the show a little later or whatever. I actually watched it through the break to see if Moxley would get out. And at one point, you could tell they were both getting a little tired. They had to get up and kind of reposition. But they came back from the break, and he's still in the hold. And he's got him down. I was like, okay, well. At one point, I was like, they're going to fucking just tap out Moxley. And I was like, I'm going to be so fucking pissed if they put this belt on Jericho for Jericho to face Punk. But they didn't, obviously. And Moxley gets the win. I thought it was a pretty entertaining way to wrap up the show, and they did it with enough time for Punk to come out and grandstand a little bit at the end and face off against Moxley. It didn't seem rushed at the end, like they were trying to get it in before TV time ran out. I thought this, we've talked about them rushing production at the end of the show lately, and I thought this was given a little time to breathe. And obviously, crowd fucking popped for Punk. I read last night that there was a secluded area backstage, and there were only like a handful of people that knew he was going to be there, so it was a surprise for almost everybody. And it was nice to see him back. And the crowd overall, I don't remember us talking about this yet, but the crowd was fucking hype all night. Was super into it. So it was a good way to end the show. I thought, started off really, really strong, went downhill a little bit, and then ended strong, in my opinion.
Yeah, the first two matches and then this main event, like, this was, overall, it was a pretty good episode. Even though, we have our critiques, I think overall it was a really good episode of Dynamite. Most of the time, the episodes of Dynamite are really good, even though we have critiques. Yeah. It's just like, I think that there's like AEW's inability to pivot, like we mentioned. I think that's their biggest downfall. But they don't pivot because they get moments like at the end of it where CM Punk and Jon Moxley come out and it feels like a big deal. But like going back to the match, like, Moxley's going to find a way to bleed. At this point, it's, it's become kind of like a parody on the internet, but like I like the earring getting ripped out. If he's this crazy son of a bitch to do it, fuck it, let him do it. And then Jericho's blood was just completely unintentional. He went the hard way. And that's a hell of a way.
His nose got fucked up.
Yeah, that's a hell of a way to eat it into that damn buckle. And I think it knocked his ass loopy for there a little bit because the transition into the Walls of Jericho was a little bit rough because I think he was on spaghetti legs there for a second, and Moxley was kind of like, I think Moxley was like, hey man, like you gonna be okay? I'll help you here a little bit. Like let's try to get through this thing. But then Jericho did, and like I'm glad we didn't get to hear Judas. That's good. I don't like that song. If you like that song, it's no offense to you, but I think it's a terrible song. So it was cool. We got to hear the old school Lionheart. I think it was his ECW theme. And yeah, they put on a hell of a match. Like you said, the Walls of Jericho spot was through the commercial. It made me watch the commercial too. And also a little bit of unintentional comedy this time with Moxley gives the double fingers and then it immediately cuts, not even a second later, to a commercial about Jesus. Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So Moxley gives the double birds and then it was like... it had like some kind of voiceover and it was playing these black and white images. And then at the end it had like, he gets us. And then the he gets went away and it just said it had Jesus. I was like, this is great. It reminded me, you remember when Jericho and Gage had the death match and they had the pizza cutter out and it went to the Domino's.
It went to like Domino's.
Yeah. I think sometimes they do that shit on purpose just to kids. So that was great. And then, the aftermath was CM Punk coming out to make the save. You want to talk about what, we talk about all the time, what separates kind of the mid-card guys that are talented from like really the superstars of the art form. And man, you can just tell when CM Punk's music hit and he came in that ring, everything went up a notch. And that stare down between him and Moxley, I mean, that felt like a big damn deal. You got these two guys who are two of the biggest stars in AEW, in professional wrestling as a whole right now. And they're squaring off. I love Moxley giving him the finger. And I was kind of reading his lips a little bit. I think he said something like, you ain't shit, motherfucker, and hit him with a shoulder. And then I love the little moment of him walking with Claudio. He fucking hits him a hand slap, and then he gets fired up again and fucking hits the shoulder into him. And Claudio's like hyping his boy up. Like, that's great. Great stuff. So I'm excited as hell. I'm excited about the match we're going to get. I'm excited about the promos we're going to get because you can go so many ways with this. I think the way that probably the best way to go about it, all these characters that CM Punk has worked with in AEW so far, they've all mentioned him taking his ball and going home 7 years ago. And if there's one guy who can say that during those 7 years I picked up your absence, it's Jon Moxley. Because what did Punk talk about in those 7 years? Oh, his love for professional wrestling has kind of waned. Well, there ain't no love waning of professional wrestling for Jon Moxley.
Yeah, he lives for that shit.
He lives for it. So I think Moxley telling Punk, like, hey, they're going to have to take me out on a goddamn stretcher before I ever leave this ring for 7 years. And also, there's a little bit of, like, everything that CM Punk accomplished, Jon Moxley accomplished in the other place. And not only that, Jon Moxley, if you want to really break it down, took even a greater risk than what CM Punk did, because Jon Moxley left a potential probably seven-figure deal with WWE to come to AEW at the very beginning. He debuted on their first really pay-per-view. And that was a major kind of shot in the arm. They had Jericho, but it was really when Moxley came in that people were like, holy shit, this might be legitimate.
Something. Yeah.
And so I think having that beef there, I'm not so sure They probably will do it. They probably will unify the belt to Punk, which is also another storyline they could go into. You know, everyone's been calling Moxley the interim champion. And even JR Wednesday night on commentary was like, I don't like this interim. Like, he got in a fight. Like, I love that. Like, yeah, he's not a fucking interim champion. Like, this dude's beating people's ass.
Every fucking week.
Every week he's been carrying this company on his back. So, like, I'm not so sure I would give the belt back to Punk. Particularly because I think you need a heel turn here.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can turn Moxley and the Blackpool Combat Club heel. I think they're too over. But boy, a CM Punk heel turn with the kind of work that he can do. His best work he's done throughout his career, he's done it as a heel. And
it'd be interesting. I just always assumed they put it back on Punk because, like, he had the belt for like a week or two.
They probably will, but I'm not so sure that the best move wouldn't be to have Punk screw over Jon Moxley to win it. Yeah. And the little theory I teased earlier, everyone has talked about, we've got this MJF stuff that's lingering out there, right? We've talked about, could it be that Stokely is working behind the scenes to put together a stable for MJF to come back? And I think everyone has just kind of assumed that MJF would come back and keep working with Punk in some kind of way. But if you think about... a better
way to do it than in Chicago.
Right, but if you think about, like, what really drives a wrestling company and a wrestling storylines, it's the heels. Like, there's a reason why Ric Flair and Triple H and Randy Orton and all these guys are, like, multiple-time world champions. It's because you can just always put the belt on one of those heels, and then you immediately have a bunch of heat. Like, Ric Flair was the greatest heat generator in pro wrestling history. Triple H as well. Triple H is up there. And so you have that constant baby faces going up there to try to chase him. And AEW really doesn't have any over heels in that kind of way. MJF was the only one. What if we got a CM Punk MJF team up?
I was just thinking about that. I was like, I mean, what if he does come back? Like, let's just say that Moxley wins the belt at the pay-per-view, and then it ends with fucking MJF coming out to help Punk.
Or what if MJF is like there's the classic wrestling dude in a black hoodie with a hood up fucks over Jon Moxley, and then you get the camera shot where he peels it back, and it's fucking MJF.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And then now you have a little bit like maybe CM Punk no-sells it. So like, oh, did fucking MJF fuck over Jon Moxley because he wants to beat CM Punk's ass for the belt? And then you could reveal it if you wanted to like CM, not only did MJF, fuck over Jon Moxley, but he's actually aligned with CM Punk. And not only is aligned with CM Punk, but all these guys that Stokely Hathaway has been recruiting as Blackpool Combat Club comes out to get, their retribution on Moxley or on Punk and MJF. Well, here come Ethan Page. Here come Lee Moriarty. Here comes the Gun Club. Here comes another guy. And here comes all these disgruntled employees. Because the biggest thing about CM Punk at the other place was that he was the voice of the voiceless, right? But when he came to AEW, he said, oh, I don't really need to be the voice of the voiceless anymore. These guys have a voice. Well, now you could turn around and be like, okay, well, I kind of see where MJF is coming from here. And we've had our differences, but like some of these guys don't have a voice. And so I think it's just you have more real estate to play with, I think, if you do that. Because I don't know if... One, I don't think we need to end this Moxley Punk thing at the pay-per-view. Like, this is a months long. These guys are huge stars. We need to keep this thing going. And so I think if you're going to do that, one of these guys has to turn heel. And I don't think it's that interesting to have the dudes who just beat people up to be the heels.
Yeah. I think you're probably right on that. It's going to be an interesting pay-per-view for sure. Probably 5.5 hours.
It'll probably be close to 5. But
I'd be tired as hell the next morning, but it should be a good show. I mean, there's a lot of storylines happening that they need to try to wrap up. So I'm looking forward to it. We've got about 3 weeks left, it looks like, before there. So we'll see where it's headed from there. But so we're at about the hour mark now, man. Let's get into what's done up real good for you for this week.
Oh man. Let's see here. Still been going through 96 Nitro. Which is just, like I mentioned, I'm at Super Brawl, which happened February in 96. So at this point in WCW, the NWO isn't a thing yet. And so you still have Hogan and Savage. But kind of the interesting thing about Super Brawl 6 is that's when Brian Pillman did his I Respect You, Booker Man to Kevin Sullivan, which kind of kicked off a lot of the shoot style attitude era stuff that was happening, or that would go on to happen. So like for listeners that aren't aware, Brian Pillman was building up like this loose cannon gimmick to where he was working with Eric Bischoff, and they kind of kept some guys in the dark about what Pillman was going to do. So like in one of the WCW tapings, Brian Pillman and the Four Horsemen, he's a part of the Four Horsemen at this time, they go up to the announcer's desk and fucking Brian Pillman just starts choking out Bobby the Brain Heenan and like rips the headset off. And Bobby didn't know it was going to happen. So Bobby, like on mic, was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like you could pick it up on the mic. So like Pillman and Bischoff are kind of keeping this thing going. And so Kevin Sullivan, who was the booker at the time of WCW, also as the Taskmaster and the leader of the Dungeon of Doom and storyline at this time, him and Brian are going to have a strap match for respect. And so the thing starts, and Pillman just shoots in on Sullivan and just takes him down and like starts landing some really hard shots, right? Because this shit, like Pillman's working, but to Sullivan, this shit's a shoot, right? And so Pillman starts whooping Sullivan's ass. And then the whole gimmick of the match was that it was supposed to be like, whoever said, "I respect you" first, that's who wins. And so it happens for like 30 seconds, and Pillman gets on the mic and just says, "I respect you, Booker Man," and fucking throws the mic down and walks off. And like commentary's shocked, fucking Sullivan is shocked, and you can tell Sullivan is like, what the hell just happened? He's talking to the referee. They do this weird thing where like Arn Anderson comes down to the ramp to come to the ring. He's in fucking boots and shorts and a dress-up shirt. He's been playing golf all day. And apparently the story was that like when he was watching this on the monitors, when Pillman said what he said, he damn near fucking fell out of his seat. So they rush back there and get Arn and like, "Hey, you just got to go to the ring." And so they just booked this shit on the fly. Well, the whole thing was supposed to be that like Bischoff was going to fire Pillman for real. And then Pillman was going to come back to WCW at some point. But what Pillman ended up actually doing was Bischoff fired him, and then Pillman went to WWE for a guaranteed contract and a shit ton of money. So he basically worked fucking everybody in this thing. And this really is what kicked off. You know, that's when he ended up getting in a car accident, fucking up his foot. That's where he did the whole thing with Stone Cold, where he pulled a gun out on live TV and like all this shit. And so like that's the Super Bowl 96. I guess that's probably my done up real good. If you want to see like when wrestling really kicked it up a notch into kind of this reality based era of attitude, like it fucking starts. It starts with Pillman, which is kind of crazy. I'd forgotten all about that until I saw it. But
if y'all missed it this week, a couple days ago, we put a video of Patrick and his son on our Instagram page at Alabama Slam Pod. And you said little man might have been watching a little too much Hulkamania lately, huh?
Yeah, a little too much Hulk. He hit me with the old finger point. He screwed up the order, though. You're supposed to do the finger point before you do the hit, but like he's 2.5, so what does he know? You know, he messes up the order, so he'll get that in eventually.
We'll give him a little grace on that.
Yeah.
So my done up for real good for the week is The Boys. Jamie and I started watching The Boys again. few nights ago. We had only gotten a few episodes into season 1 before we got sidetracked and didn't go back to it, but we picked it back up, and I forgot how good that show is. I know it's only going to get a little stranger as it goes, but I'm into it at the moment. So that's done up real good for me. I say let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, man, and get our work day started before I get in any trouble back here. Came in early to get this thing recorded. I'll get it up and on the internet here in the next few minutes. But man, if y'all don't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Alabama Slam Pod. Review us on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done that already. That'll help us out big time, getting a little more exposure to other people. Be sure to follow the Alabama Take on Facebook, and you get information from our podcast, the Taking It Down podcast. We got a bunch of staff writers right now writing. There's a new article up about the new Lee Baines and the Glory Fires record that came out last Friday. That's done up real good. That's a badass record from friend of the show, Lee. Short Takes, Alabama Take, Blaine Duncan is on YouTube. You can watch that. He ended up the season, I think he had 6 or 7 episodes, sort of a short internet talk show. Last episode of the season was with Lee Baines, and you can get t-shirts. Just get on tpublic.com and search for Alabama Slam or the Alabama Take, and you should be able to find us. Patrick was sporting a snazzy coffee mug earlier in the show. You could see it. There might be a picture to go along with that. We're recording via Riverside. It'll record a couple little pictures every now and then, so there might be one of those. Anyway, go get a t-shirt, coffee mug, stickers, all kinds of shit. And I guess that's it for us, man, unless you got any final thoughts, Patrick.
I don't, man. AEW is rolling along, so we got a lot to talk about here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, man. Should be a fun few weeks leading up to All Out, man. We'll see you guys next Friday.
Later.